Hello everybody. So it's Saturday morning. There's a funny noise going off over there, if you can hear that. So I'm here in Coventry. I was up extremely early at 7:30 for breakfast, even though I went to bed at, I think I managed to get to sleep at about 3:45. So just a few hours sleep. But something I find is that, being sober, that I don't actually need as much sleep as I did before, whereas I'd always want to have, trying to recover. The length of sleep would always help, Anyway, so I've had breakfast. We had a great gig last night. Loads of people, everyone was up for it, jumping around, dancing. The band was playing good. Of course, got back late, but waking up, feeling okay. I've done emails already this morning. I had breakfast. I'm now out for a coffee in Coventry. Yeah, interesting place to find coffee. That's something that I found out now, is that I love coffee, It was something that I never did before. A few people have messaged me and said, what was the reason? What was the thing that made me stop drinking? And what was that moment that I went, right, I can't do this anymore? Now, from the age of 15 to the age of 30, there was maybe 3 times or 4 times where I said where I went into hospital. When I would come out of hospital, I'd say to myself, right, that's it, I'm never going to drink again, I'm never going to drink again. And as soon as you sort of say that to yourself, oh, I'm never going to drink again, everything sort of sounds like, oh, well, it's going to be all right. And you start to actually feel a bit better. And then after about a week, you go, oh, well, I feel all right now. And then you go, oh no, why did I tell everybody I'm going to stop drinking? And then you go, well, I've got to go through with it for a bit now. And then so then I would normally for about 4 weeks or 5 weeks not drink and go, yeah, no, that's it. But I never really had the conviction that I was stopping for good, or this is it, this is the end now, I'm done. It never felt like that. And I would stop, I'd stop for maybe 5 weeks. I think the longest I stopped, I had a swollen liver. I was 21. Living in South London and in Wandsworth, and I went to the doctors with pain, and you could actually, where your liver is up here, you could feel this kind of pain and this thing sticking out. There's that noise again. And anyway, so I went to the doctors, and I had a swollen liver, and they recommended that I stop drinking. So I stopped drinking. And I think I stopped for 6 months in total. And when I went back to the doctors, remember they gave me a therapist, and this is something that it was in Clapham. It was at Springfield Community Alcohol Rehab Centre. And so I'm talking to the lady in rehab, and she says, so how much are you drinking? And so I told her everything in a very honest manner, as I do. And she was someone who had never had a drink. She'd never had a drink. She didn't know what it was like to be pissed. She'd never taken drugs. She'd never smoked, and I know that you can learn all about this, but it's like going to a grief counsellor who's never lost anyone close to them. I know I've been told that, before, that how, and it often takes someone who can relate to it. If someone can't relate to you, then how the hell can you? It's very frustrating, that is. If someone, I'm sat there going, well, how do you know what I'm going through if you've never been through this? Lucky you that you've never been through this way of living your life. So I was young there, I was 21. But I remember going back to the doctors after 6 months, and they did all the checks on my liver, and they said, oh, your liver's fine, actually. And I said, could I drink again then? And they said, well, yeah, you could drink if you wanted, but we don't recommend it, because from what you were drinking before, it sounds like you're alcoholic. I'm just going to have I said, it sounds like you've got a massive problem with addictions, to which I said, okay, but I could have a drink, And I remember I said to myself, right, I'm going to start drinking again, but I'm going to do it very, very moderately. So I came out of the doctors and I went straight to the pub, and I had 2 pints of Guinness, and I remember getting home and going to bed and waking up the next day with a massive hangover just from these 2 pints. Does that tell you something? Yeah, and I felt dreadful. Anyway, so I thought, oh, how am I going to get rid of this? So I used to go to a snooker club in the afternoon when I wasn't travelling or doing gigs. And I remember going down there and going, all right, lads, I'm just starting drinking again, like a little bit. And I remember having, the next day it was 10 pints of Guinness. And then within a couple of days, it was just full on back to what it was. Apart from I'd stopped drinking spirits, I was just drinking pints. So that was weird. That, you know, it didn't, when I stopped, I didn't feel like I was stopping for good. It didn't feel that. So why did I stop for good? So I got a pain in my leg. I'll tell you when it was September of 2013. I thought, right, I'm going to get a bit healthy. So I bought a bike and I was going to go, and I went out on the bike, and I used to do a bit of biking and skateboarding and rollerblading and all that when I was younger, jumping down stairs, doing ramps and handrails. So I thought, right, okay, surely I can still do all that again. So I get this bike and I go out and I'm just cycling around, and but I didn't do anything go bad. I was like, yeah, right, brilliant, this is good. And I get back from the cycle ride and I lay down on the bed, and when I stood up I was like, oh God, my hip really hurts. I was like, what's this? And it felt like I'd pulled a muscle and you needed to just go like, ugh, you know, and it would click into place. So I was thinking, well, anyway, this was in the September, and this went on for a while, and they gave me painkillers and things like that, and which were nice, of course. And then it wasn't till the February time that the doctors said, look, we're going to send you for an MRI scan. And I said, okay. So they sent me for an MRI scan in the February, and they said, we'll get your results back in a couple of weeks or whatever it was. No, it must have been the beginning of March. And then they called me in to the hospital for the results, and I went in, and I remember it, March 27th, 2014. I went in, and we were just going on tour with Bad Manners. We were playing in Bedford, in Luton that night. We were playing at the Hat Factory, I remember it. And so I go down there thinking, oh right, yeah, they're probably going to tell me, oh, this is what's wrong, probably give you an injection, it'll be all right, or something like that. Anyway, I got there and I sat down, and the guy said, I've got 2 bits of bad news for you. And I said, right, okay, what's that then? He said, the first thing is, you've got the pain in your hip is, they said, are you still drinking as much as you were? And I said, yeah, I am. They said, well, I'm afraid your drinking days are done. You've got to stop drinking, like you're going to drink yourself to death. I was like, okay. I said, well, what's the second bit of bad news? They said, well, from drinking so much, your blood's thinned and you've got avascular necrosis, or they call it AVN, which is blood causing death, right? And so my blood had thinned from all the alcohol, and it stopped feeding the ends of my bones. And what had happened was, from the amount of alcohol I've been drinking, my right hip, the ball of the hip had actually crumbled away. So it's only just like, I was literally half a ball joint, you know. And so it's the second bit of bad news is you've got to have a hip replacement. To which, really wasn't what I was expecting. Going out there, going into the hospital, going in to meet the doctor or get the results, you know. And that was it. And I think when you leave the hospital at the age of 30, and you've got a 30 or 31, and you've got a leaflet, a pamphlet saying about your hip replacement, you know, it was like, oh, yeah, I might have fucked this one up a bit. And I remember going to the Bad Manners gig and telling all the band, you know, and they were all like, shit, you know, this is serious, like you've really done it in. Anyway, I had to, so then I was put on a waiting list for the NHS, but because it's alcoholic, they said, because you're young, we want to do a thing, watch and wait, we want to see how quickly it deteriorates, and you know, so this was in the March, and it looked like I wouldn't have had the operation until, that they wouldn't put me in for the operation until November, so it'd probably be about 9 or 10 months or something till I'd have it. but I was at a gig, so I'd been going around on a crutch and I was on a walking stick, you know, because the pain was incredible, you know, it was weird pain, and I would, and I was at a gig, and a lady who supported my music, come to the jazz gigs for years, she saw me and she said, "Adrian, what's wrong with your hip?" And I said, "Oh, I've got to have a hip replacement." She said, "Right, the person you must go and see is this person, Jonathan Miles. He's the best. Today he's done mine, double hip." And I said, "Oh, well, I can't go there." And this lady, she said to me, "No," she said, "you can't wait." She said, "You need to get this done." And she said, "Go and have a consultation." She said, "You pay for the consultation." She said, and I'll pick up the cost of the hip replacement." And so that was at the end of April when she told me that. I went and saw the guy in the middle of May, and then June the 17th, 2014, I had a full hip replacement. So it was quite full on. I then had to go, right, this is it. You know, there's someone there who's looking after me, who's, you know, godsend, you know, and so I had the hip replacement. Of course, recovery time from that, I took time off work. But when I stopped drinking, March 27th, I'd stopped cold turkey. And luckily there was a lady called Claire Robbins, who's the most fantastic alcohol counsellor. I was very lucky. She was in the surgery down the road from me where I was living in Islington. And I remember walking in, meeting her for the first time, and she was like, "All right, Adrian," she said, "don't worry, I've Googled you, I know the bands you play with, I know what you do." So, and she said to me, she was like, "What's it like going out on the piss with you then?" And so I spoke to her, I was talking to her, she was like, "Fucking hell, you're like a bit of an Oliver Reed character, I love it." She's like, "Anyway, we're not here to talk about going out getting pissed, are we?" She said, "Look," yeah, and I don't know what it was, but I respected her so much. She was the one from the outset who, when I met her, she's just like the coolest woman, and someone who totally got it, unlike before. And I feel so lucky to have met her. And in the last couple of years, we reconnected on Twitter, which is great. But the world needs millions and millions of people like her. But yeah, and she prescribed me disulfiram, which is the medication that you take that you'd be sick if you have it. And she prescribed it to me, but I never ever took it, which is great. You know, it was just in case I was worried if I go into certain situations, you know. But I respected her so much, and I owe her so much, and to my friend who paid for my hip replacement, and of course the NHS for the MRI scans and all that. But yeah, so to answer that question, that is that was the sort of wake-up call that I needed. So, but saying that, some people say to me, "Oh yeah, but you know, it's all right for you because you were told," and it's like, well, you can still. I'd say to them, "Well, I could tell you don't drink now." It's like, yeah, but it's not the same. It's like it's what it comes down to. It's all down to you. Someone could tell you that, "Oh, you've got to stop." I know hundreds of people who have been told to stop drinking, but they still drink. So this is the change that has to happen, has to come from yourself. That's it. It's only you who can change. You know, people can support you and tell you what to do and help you and say, "Try doing this," you know. But yeah, really, it comes from yourself. And but I'll tell you a bit more. Anyway, I've got to go back to the hotel because we've got to go and we've got to go over to the venue. Got to load all the gear on the bus, come and pick up the lead singer, and then on to Blackpool. So there you go. Yeah, only you can change. It's all down to yourself, basically. I say basically, but once you can get that in your brain, it's quite an empowering thing. So anyway, I'll catch up with you later on. I'm going to leave this video in colour. Maybe I should leave it in colour, or should I do it in black and white? Ooh, I don't know. Anyway, speak to you later, folks. Bye.